Schiaparelli and Prada, Impossible Conversations, pairs together designers separated by time, the 1930s and the present day, but who are united by their creative and conceptual similarities. Elsa Schiaparelli and Miuccia Prada are both known for their deliberate fashion provocations that tend to confront normative conventions of taste, of beauty, of glamour, and of femininity, but at the same time, they never forget the practicalities of fashion. Impossible Conversations, the exhibition, relies on the actual words of Schiaparelli and Prada to create new readings of both their most adventurous designs.
But eventually, by chance, my salvation was stumbling into fashion.
Yes, of course.
Finding beauty in my own way.
You had a much more difficult life than mine.
The films were directed by Baz Luhrmann. Judy Davis is playing Schiaparelli, Prada is playing herself. And it's a very informal conversation in which the two women discuss their approaches into fashion, their avenues into fashion across the dinner table. And they, in a way, place the viewer in the role of an eavesdropper, secretly observing the private exchange between the two women.
To be a woman, a fashion designer in the 60s and 70s was the worst. But I liked it so much that they did it anyway.
Yes, I think now I realize why we are here.
The second gallery you come into focuses on the primary zones of the body onto which the two designers project their narrative attention, the waist up for Schiaparelli and the waist down for Prada. Schiaparelli's emphasis on the waist up largely stems from the social needs of her day.
Hollywood fell in love with my silhouette. Katharine Hepburn, Joan Crawford. I made them embroidered jackets.
With a lot of frills here, I would feel uncomfortable.
For yourself or for women in general?
Yes, I personally and in general.
Since women were usually seated in restaurants, decoration from the waist down was essentially redundant. So Schiaparelli devoted her attention primarily to jackets, which were often elaborately embroidered by Maison Lesage. Prada's interest in the waist down is both personal and, in a way, more instinctive. She directs her focus to the dramatic possibilities of skirts. She believes that the waist down is not only more active and dynamic, but also more basic and grounded.
While if you put too much stuff probably near your face, probably it's strange, or at least I'm like this. Maybe I'm just not able.
As an addendum to Waist Up, Waist Down is a section called Neck Up, Knees Down. It extends Schiaparelli's interest in the waist up through hats, and also Prada's interest in the waist down through shoes. For both designers, accessories serve as undiluted expressions of their most fantastical impulses.
In an
I
easy
can't
way.
say that there was anything easy about my hats. Aha! Lamb chops on the head. I mean, it's crazy.
But craziness in a shoe is such a weird place. You can have much more freedom, you can exaggerate, and doesn't feel to me stupid.
Hard chic comprises designs that reference menswear, military and service uniforms, and industrial materials and fastenings applied with deliberate severity and sobriety.
When I wore my trousers skirt in London, there was a violent controversy. You know, they wanted to outlaw it. For me, it was strong and feminine. You know, much more modest, more graceful than a skirt.
Yes. There is a concept that probably I want to say that I try to make the man more human and the women more powerful.
Both Prada and Schiaparelli transpose masculine qualities into their fashions. And I think what's interesting about both women is how they utilize the playfulness, the sweetness, the femininity sometimes of girls' clothes and transpose it onto women's clothes. A lot of their provocations are in very discrete visual codes, brain teasers, for their clients or their customers. Often it reflects the zeitgeist, what's happening in the wider world, whether it's politics or art or culture.
We can't be imprisoned by fashion, and that is the worst thing that can happen to a woman.
And we shouldn't be afraid of age, but wear our clothes with youth and innocence.
Not real innocent, but as a choice.
Yes.
Innocence as a
Women
choice.
shouldn't be frightened of being conspicuous, but should dare to be different.
Ugly chic focuses on materials, colours and patterns in discordant combinations which are exploited for their transgressive, inaesthetic sensibilities. And I think in the case of both Schiaparelli and Prada, one of their lasting legacies is actually subverting what we mean by good taste and bad taste.
I want to really try to understand what is beauty and what is a possible beauty today.
Yes, I have taken from all around me cellophane, back,
A possible
glass.
beauty means something that you can wear in, everywhere, that is not ridiculous, that makes sense with the complication
We
of...
must refuse the definition of glamour without ever being any less glamorous.
Both women would use colours that were considered unappealing. Nowadays, they look incredibly chic because both women have changed our eye in terms of what we mean by beauty, what we mean by aesthetics. The exotic body references both Schiaparelli and Prada's love of regional styles. Schiaparelli, again, is more literal when it comes to her references of exoticized dress from Asia, also from Africa. Prada, again, is a little bit more abstract and non-linear.
Schiaparelli did it, and Yves Saint Laurent did it in the 70s, and now it's something that is not new anymore. You can't take pieces here and there and being modern.
I don't agree.
It's not enough.
But don't you travel? I mean, I remember Peru,
Yes, but
Cuba,
yes, but
Russia,
no,
Tunisia,
things
Brazil.
are so different now. Everything is so different from that time.
No, that's not right.
The classical body for both Schiaparelli and Prada references their love of antiquity and the opposition of Dionysian and Apollonian ideals, wild and visceral and ornate on one side and classicist on the other. Schiaparelli was known for her extremely glamorous evening wear that often would channel classical antiquity, usually through the gaze of the 18th century, through the Empire line.
I don't understand why you find designing evening wear so difficult.
Because the draping was done so well in history that what do you do with draping? You can't do anything anymore.
Are you against it?
It's not I am against, but I think that I was never able to do probably a single beautiful evening dressing in my life.
The surreal body circumvents the conventional meanings conveyed by dress and asserts a more sexual and psychological reading of fashion, often through trompe l'oeil illusions, but also through unexpected juxtapositions of materials and imagery. For Schiaparelli, fashion was an art form. The act of creation was mystical. Schiaparelli was working in the 1930s in the heyday of surrealism, and I think that the surrealists' strategies of displacement of everyday objects, the idea of playing with scale, was something that very much appealed to Schiaparelli's sense of playfulness and her idea of trying to expand the boundaries of fashion and what we mean by fashion. But what's interesting about Prada is that she very much does use artistic strategies in her work. So even though she may not collaborate directly with Damien Hirst or Jeff Koons, the artist she collects, she does very much have a very postmodern approach to fashion.
For me, if I hadn't been a designer, I would like to have been a sculptor. Coco even said of me that I was that designer who wanted to be an artist.
Fashion is art, fashion is not art, but at the end, who cares? All in a sudden, we are put together in such an important exhibition, and so I'm obliged to confront with you.
I wonder if we lived together at the same time, would we be friends or foes?
I think friends.
So maybe now we can agree that designers are artists.
No, never. Schiaff, never. I think that you have to do your job, and who cares about the title?
Salute.